Hey guys, what's going on? Andrew coming at you. It's a new year in Sweden, 2024. Sweden went from having a left government to a far more right government than it's ever had before. This has been done with new alliances being formed that's made the government much more conservative. This has led to new law changes coming up, and we're going to take a look at some of these laws. I'm going to give you some of my opinions. We're going to talk about Sweden moving forward in 2024. So let's get into it. The first one we got to talk about is the visualization zones. And basically, this is stop and frisk in the US, where now Sweden's police have the authority in certain designated zones to be able to stop people, search them for any guns, drugs, or weapons, be able to question them on where they are going. And it's a hope that this is going to have help take the crime rate down. One thing I can tell you from being in Sweden now where I see a far-right government, one thing I definitely notice way more, and I'm curious if my audience has noticed, but a much bigger increase in police presence. I have no doubt in my mind that police are being offered overtime to be more vigilant and to be seen more. I take the commute from Linköping to Norrköping every single day, and I've noticed increased presence of police at the train station. And don't get me wrong, when I see police, I definitely feel more safe, but that's not everybody that's going to feel that way. And one thing that we saw that happened in the United States with stop and frisk is that although it maybe had an impact on lowering crime rates, it also really hurt the community relationship with the police. And so you need to have the community involved in the police because you need members of the community to give the police information, to help them from preventing crimes. And I think everybody would agree at this point that the crime rate in Sweden has gotten out of control with gang violence. And so they are trying to do something. And this is going to be their way to do it. I feel like this is going to create a problem with police and the community. I think this is going to do more harm than good. And I also think this is giving up your own personal freedom for the illusion of safety. Because once these zones are up, it's not like the criminals are going to be running through them all the time, and they're going to be able to communicate and text message between each other. So if they know that an area is not a good area to go through, they just won't go through it. So people will eventually just avoid it. So yes, but I think this is one of those laws that's put on the books to say, look, we're doing something. And going off this law, there's also a law where police will be able to do physical searches to make sure that people are in the country legally. Number two, one thing Sweden is doing is trying to cut the overall taxes down and put laws and regulations in place to lower the cost of gas, oil, and petroleum, to help lower some of the taxes that people are paying. They've done this for people that are between 15 and 18 to help lower the taxes there. So some tax cuts coming through, which is really, really good because of the inflation that we have happening right now in Sweden. But it's too soon to really see if this will make a difference in anyone's bottom line, but it's nice to see because I was wondering if they were going to try to lower the cost of gas, oil, and just taxes overall. Next law in Sweden, if you drive an electric scooter, you have to have insurance for it. I think this is a great thing because I see a ton of people on scooters like all the time just driving around on their phone, not paying attention. As a runner, that's one of my fears is getting hit by someone on a scooter because they don't pay attention. I know someone personally that got hit with someone on a scooter while they were on a bike, and they still are recovering for it. It was a major head injury. So I think it's good that there's more laws in place and regulations for scooters, and I hope they do that with a lot of these rental scooters as well, because sometimes it just gets out of control because people just throw them anywhere. But maybe I'm sounding like a boomer here, but that's just my opinion. Another law in effect is no longer need to have a charging cable. This is like almost an overall law between the EU in general. I'm sure you've heard about this with Apple having to switch to the lightning cable. But yes, they're trying to cut down on the amount of charging cables, making it fewer charging cables for phones. That's good for all the consumers, and that's good for the environment, so I support that one. Starting in January, there's going to be a massive increase to the punishment for owning a firearm in Sweden. Now, this is talking about obtaining them illegally. Again, I have a feeling that a lot of these firearms get in illegally, probably through former Russian countries, and especially with the war going on in Ukraine, it probably has really led to a lot more illegal firearms being sent out for profit. Just because there's probably got to be some people that are corrupt during that. And it just seems to be during war times, it's really easy for the weapons to get through. I'm someone in general that thinks that Sweden needs to increase its punishments. I think sometimes Sweden is too nice. So I support this one, as I think that people that are carrying firearms should be punished quite harshly. And one law that has not gone into effect just yet, but they're hoping to be able to ban certain people from certain areas in Sweden if they're suspected of being involved in a crime. So this law hasn't gone into effect yet, but the idea is if someone is a known criminal, and let's say they typically operate in a certain area, they can ban them from that area to see if they can make any changes. If you want to know what's led to a lot of this, it's just the simple fact that over the last few months, there's been a massive increase in violence in Sweden related to gang violence, and it's led to a little bit of a gang war. that involved a lot of explosions going off. We had one here in Linköping. There's been a lot of shootings, and typically, at least in my experience being in the United States, you tend to have crime in these high crime areas. We had that originally in Sweden, but it seems to be funneling out to more areas, and this is what's led to more of a far-right government in Sweden, in my opinion, and why we're seeing a lot of these new laws in effect. One thing's for sure, I think we're dealing with a very, very different government, and we're seeing a country that has kind of changed its ways, because another law that's kind of gone in effect is Sweden changed the minimum amount that you had to make in Sweden. I believe it's like 17,000 crowns was the minimum amount you have to make to be ordered to stay in the country, and I think the reason is this is going to take a lot more people out of the country, maybe people that are not working a real job and maybe just working in illegal activity. They're going to be forced to get out of the country. So Sweden is definitely moving towards deporting a lot more people, making it much harder to get into the country. And for me, it's just interesting because it's a complete 180 from the previous government. Because the previous government, you weren't allowed to talk about any issues that were going on with immigration at all. You were just called a bunch of different names, and now the government has totally switched. It is my feeling that you can't, if you're going to go hard left and then suddenly you go hard right, that is also going to create lots of problems. I think that there's probably more common sense somewhere down the middle. I think that some of these laws and things are probably going to cause problems in the future for Sweden, but we'll have to see. As far as Sweden's 2024 outlook in the economy, I still feel like Sweden is going to be in a recession in 2024. I still feel like the economy is going to be hurting in the country, but hopefully some of these new laws, regulations, trying to lower gas prices will lead to things better happening in the economy here in Sweden. What I'm going to do is, I was inspired by an article here, so I'm going to link this article from the local so you can read more about all these laws and changes. Are there any laws and changes that I didn't bring up? Please let me know below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hej då!